Hello, YouTubers. This is a special session, and I'm being joined here today by my dear friend Brian Parker to talk to you a little bit about, supercharging your Blazor WASM applications with an amazing library that we've been using for years now, to kind of simplify and kind of, straightforward the integration with APIs. The library is called RESTful Sense. I'll let Brian talk to you a little bit about it and what it does and all that kind of stuff. Brian came in and he said, this library is very fitting for backend applications and server-side Blazor. I'm going to take this library and I'm going to port it into Blazor WASM. So now, when you want to do API communication from your WASM application, you can easily just, pull in the NuGet package called RESTFulSense.WebAssembly, and then you can run the application. And I'm very glad and very flattered to be joined by you today, Brian. Do you want to tell people a little bit about RESTful Sense and show people a little bit of demo? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. So the RESTful Sense project, it basically it allows us to have meaningful errors, and meaningful errors is pretty important if you want to have an enterprise sort of class application and you want to be able to manage your errors well. Um, Hassan's project, while it was very, very good, it didn't work in WASM. He was calling some libraries that were not compatible with WASM. So I had to do a bit of a rewrite, and hopefully now I can demonstrate to you guys how well it works.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just for the people watching us for the first time, when Brian says, meaningful errors, it means that when you're using RESTful Sense and you're calling an API endpoint, and this API endpoint, let's say, throws a 400 exception, it actually wraps that in an actual meaningful exception that the engineers can handle on their side. And then from there, you can easily basically start reacting to that. But it has so many other things like the problem details on the controller side. This part is not a part of Blazor WASM because obviously, Brian, there's no need, right, for that. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'll let you start and show people a quick demo for that, and then we will discuss as we go. Go ahead, my friend.
So what I'm going to do as the demonstration is just a quick spin up of a template project that's coming with .NET 6. So as you've seen here, I've selected a WebAssembly app, and I'm just calling it a WASM client. I'm
Nice.
going to push this to a repo that I'll share at the end of the video. So I'll just go ahead and just create this. You'll see that I'm going to go with no authentication, but I'm going to have core hosted. So this will give me an API straight off, so I don't have to write one.
Yep.
Yep.
So just a free API out of the box. You can or
Yep.
cannot have it. It's just something that you can call to pull
Yep.
data. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So this is just the standard just standard template at the moment. So what we're going to do is just show you how easy it is to drop in the new library.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is spin this up and just show you how it works. So this is without, and just make sure it's a project that runs
Uh-huh.
somewhere around here. It's open the window. Okay.
All right. So that's the API. That's the
Yep.
client running.
So
Okay.
I'm just going to hit. I'm going to have. Yep. It's running, and we've got
Hmm.
data coming. Okay. All good. Very easy.
Okay.
So how easy is it to bring it in? So all we need to do is go to your client project. We need to add the NuGet package.
So wait, Brian. Before you do
Okay.
that, how
Yep.
does the client today makes that call to the API?
Oh, oh, okay. Yep.
Uh,
No worries. So I'll go to the client. You'll
mhm.
see in program
Yeah.
CS,
Uh-huh.
it sets up a HTTP client
Hmm.
here, and then it injects that HTTP client to be available
Okay.
as a scope. When we go to the pages fetch data, it's injecting the client,
Yep.
yeah, and it's simply using that client here to
It's
pull the
doing all
data.
that little,
Yep.
and it doesn't handle exceptions or anything. So if your client is out offline, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to handle all these errors, you don't get any of that.
Yeah,
outside of that guy. All right, awesome. So that's how things stand today. All right, perfect.
okay, no worries. So let's go back to here. We'll go. We browse for.
RESTful sends. So there's
We
two
find.
of them. So
Yes.
this top one is for server side or APIs, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
This
this
is for
second,
service. It'll also yeah, your this is your solution, your project, which also includes controllers for the server side.
nice.
So this one here, we've dropped all the dependencies that that
The original
WASM,
solution.
yeah, that WASM didn't like. So we're just down to these.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
So we'll just install that. Accept.
And
And
you
I'll
made
just
this library super small. It's like, what is it, Brian? Like 64 kilobytes or something like
about.
that?
I think last time I looked, it was 24, but I think it was because
Nice.
uh,
Why does the size of the library matter, Brian? Why is it super important for
well,
WASM applications?
okay. So WASM, everything runs in the browser. So anything that's large will take a long time be delivered in the browser, and
Mm-hmm.
also if it's large, there's a fair chance it's also consuming a fair amount of memory. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like things to be small and efficient. Yeah. So it's
Awesome. So
yep.
size really, the size of the library and the size of your overall application really matters because you want to load this as fast as possible, even if there is a latency in the network or anything like that. You want to make
Yep.
sure that the CDN can serve this as soon as fast as possible. Awesome.
I think this whole application, when we're finished, should only be about a bit over 520 kilobytes. So
Oh, that's beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful. All right.
Okay. So
Awesome.
so the next thing we need to do here is it's pretty easy. So
Mm,
we just have to change this to a RESTful sense.webassembly.client. So here's the thing. If you just want to straight drop in, you can just do this. Okay.
uh-huh.
I'm gonna pull this out and make it a using.
Okay. Control period would pull that down for you. And
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Okay. Um, I'll just drop this down to another line because we're on such a big screen.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah,
All
okay,
right.
so save that. Now, what I would do personally, I would actually inject by interface. This is actually injecting an instance. I want to inject an interface, so that
Mm-hmm.
would probably be smarter to actually just do this.
So wherever RESTful API client is being called, it will resolve to this particular instance. That's like a classic dependency injection kind of scenario, right?
Yes, but because we're using it, referencing it by its interface, we can actually mock it as is.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So that's all we have to do here in Program CS. We just come over to here. We now change this to a
RESTful.
yeah. Oops. I'm gonna actually
You're fine.
I'm gonna go back and
Just copy it. Yeah, okay.
yeah. Uh, I could give it a better name, but I'm just going to leave it as that to just to show
Mhm.
you how easy. And we need to bring that
It
in.
might just needs the yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
So just wait for that to go. And all we have to do here is just change this method here now is get content async. Job
Hmm.
done. We can
Nice.
we can trap errors around that if we need to, and we'll get all the meaningful errors. But I'm just going to show you at this stage the happy path of just converting your project straight over.
Okay.
Okay, so that should work.
That's really nice. Just as simple as that. Just a couple of
Yep,
lines of code. Nice. Nice.
job done.
Beautiful. Now let's fake an error, right? Let's fake an error and say your API is down and you're trying to load, and let's see the kind of exception that RESTful Sense would throw versus the exception that a normal client would throw, just to show people what the real difference is. What do you think about
Okay.
that? Mm-hmm.
So so what? There's two ways I could do that. I could just start the client on its own,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, that's exact. Yep, yep. So
yeah.
debug, I think.
Oops.
Where did it go? There should be like a little.
Set a startup project. I'm looking for that. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
Okay.
because my screen resolution is so
Yep, yep, yep,
huge.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, I lose it. And we'll just run that.
Run it. Yeah.
Okay, and so I've got no trapping here, so we'll throw an error, and it'll be an ugly error like like the standard solution will do it.
Yep. All
Okay,
right. So now I think if you F12 to
that
show that,
yeah,
is it F? Yeah, there you go. So F12 here on the console, it should show you the exception that RESTful Sense is throwing.
yep.
If you go, yeah, there it is. So this guy here is throwing what exception, Brian? It's basically saying, I tried to map your exception or something like that.
I'm
The
trying to find
throws
exact.
based on it. Let's see.
See, it's actually showing an exception here because it's trying to
It didn't know how to
deserialize.
serialize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So this is this guy, and this guy is basically saying I tried to serialize whatever came back. So what does your API actually return? Like if you try to hit that exact endpoint, what is it returning right now when you hit?
Uh, it'll be nothing because it doesn't exist.
Right, it should be a 404 or something like that, right? Because this guy is trying to parse some content of some kind. Let's try to
Hmm.
hit it. Let's see what it comes back with, just real quick.
No worries.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
so going through, there's nothing at this address.
No, 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 no. The API the API that the WASM application would actually be hitting.
That
What's
would
the
be it.
that would
See,
be this? So they're both
yeah,
running on the same port. Interesting.
that's right. That's right. And that's the
Interesting.
standard template application. Yep.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And it's not returning anything. It just says, sorry, there is nothing at this address.
Hmm.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, and that's a controller endpoint that you're trying to hit. So if you try to hit this controller endpoint in, let's say in Postman, for instance, what does
Yeah, yeah,
Postman give you back?
yeah. I actually don't. I haven't got Postman installed.
Oh, no worries. If you go, no, no, no. So I have an idea. If you go into that base address, wherever it's getting that base address from,
Yeah.
let's go real quick to that one and see where that base address is
Oh,
configured.
okay.
Mhm.
So that's coming from program CS. I'll just stop it
Uh-huh.
again. Gosh, I hate it when my screen's so large.
I face that same challenge as well, but we have to make sure the content is consumable. So okay, so this guy, so this hosted environment base address. So if you put a breakpoint on this guy, or you just run a quick watch,
Hmm.
would it actually? Yeah, let's see what this address is, and let's try to hit it while the API is not running, just out of curiosity.
Actually went straight past it. You got
Interesting.
to get a breakpoint in WASM, you need to put. It's a bit tricky. You have to put
You
a
probably have to put it on the builder itself, right? I think, like line 10 maybe. Yeah, let's try this guy again and see.
I'll just stop it. And I found I've had to put a delay in the past.
Uh-huh. Oh, a delay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Hmm.
See, did it even load this? Yeah, there
Oh,
you go. So now you can get that guy, the builder host environment base address, I think. Yeah, there it is. That's your guy. So if we copy this guy and you hit weather forecast on that guy, on a web page, it doesn't have to be like so this is okay. So let's go back here. Okay.
This is exactly what I hit before.
So that's the same one you hit.
Yeah.
Interesting. And if you hit that, it tries to load some UI. Well, your app is
Mm,
your
it's
so there's
already.
here's another one for you. You know, the interesting how this thing is working is interesting. Okay, so there's that part, right? Ideally, what I thought would happen if that's really so if you run everything at once, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
hit that exact same endpoint, would it just return raw data like raw with
Yes.
a
Yeah. And so,
gotcha?
yeah. So, oops. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it might start. It might start on a different port.
Uh-huh.
No, it's the same port.
It's import. Okay.
Mm.
That's very interesting how this thing works. Okay. Weather
So if I,
forecast.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So this guy is now running.
yeah.
All right. The one thing I'm starting to think about here is that, you know, if this API endpoint wasn't running, technically you should get like a URL not found
Mm-hmm.
exception. But maybe it returned that because when you're hitting the API endpoint, it's rendering sorry, there is nothing at this page.
Yes, it is.
So
It's
it,
coming back on the error message. Yeah.
yeah, so in an API, it would actually return a 404, but
Yep.
because it's hosted on the same API endpoint. Now let me ask you this. So first of all, this is something that we need to kind of talk about and think
Mm-hmm.
about in terms of handling these exceptions. But also the second thing here is that these Blazor client-side applications, they're more likely to call an external API than call their own API that's running on the same port, I'm assuming, right?
In the real world, yes, but in the demonstration world, no. it's it's funny.
Gotcha.
The template always spins up your own API with and everything, but I actually find in the real world you'll have external APIs everywhere, and
And and ha
you'll have more than one, and they'll all be configured through a factory.
Awesome, awesome. I love the quick setup on this library. I love that you can very easily. Let's try something also for the people watching us. If you go into the controller API endpoint and just return bad requests, Brian, I really want people to see
Yep.
the actual difference between using just an HTTP client versus, you know, using something else. So let's just go here in the controller and just return a bad request in that HTTP GET controller method.
Yep. Is it a bad request?
Yeah, just bad request.
Yeah.
And then you want to make sure that you encapsulate your IEnumerable with an action result. Like this is really just out of the box kind of controller, just the simplest. It's not even a minimal kind of thing, but yeah, action result would take care of that, assuming a properly built API
Mm-hmm.
endpoint. Yeah, there you go. So now if you run everything, let's see what kind of exception the RESTful sense would throw versus a normal HTTP request would throw. Just to, you know, I really want people to see what this is really doing for them in terms of problem details, exception handling, and all that. Okay, so here's an exception. And now if you look at the console, what does it give you?
Okay.
hmm So you see this one right here, HTTP response bad request exception. Do you see it? That's what the third line from the top.
Yep.
So this guy, this is where, so you guys, if you're watching this, you know, this is really what matters because we're gonna flip over to the native out of the box HTTP client that you get, and I'm gonna show you how, you know, hard it is to kind of catch what's actually being thrown. Like imagine this HTTP response bad request exception with problem details inside of it. If you have problem details in your application, we're gonna show you that as well in a second. But Brian, you know, if you don't mind, you know, I hate to be a backseat driver here, but you
Mm.
know, if you switch back to the original HTTP client, what would be the response that people would receive when they're communicating with an API through a web?
Okay. Yeah, I get you. Mm. sorry.
So we're just trying to show people the difference there between these two. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I should have commented out those lines.
You could just do Control Z. If you do Control Z, it'll just work.
Uh, yep.
There it is. Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
so that was none of that, and we.
Yep. So this is almost there. Yeah. So this is the normal API endpoint that you would that is a basic default client, which is doing a lot of great work. It
Mm-hmm.
just needed that extra, and then the same thing with the page. So we're
Yeah.
not really talking.
Yeah. So down here, I changed the method here first. Need to change that there, and I need to change up here as well.
Mhm. There you
Okay.
go. All right. So let's see the kind of error that this one will throw. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe there's some improvement in the .NET 6 for this one. Here we go. So here's an error. What's the error that we're receiving? Error response status code. So the problem with the native client is that it doesn't really give you an actual exception that's strongly typed about the issue. Any exception that is thrown, you will get this exact same HTTP request exception and then a bunch of code in there. And then engineers every single time have to parse through every single code that can be returned from an API. And there's many of these. There's a ton of these. I think 32 or something like that. There's many of these. And there is no mapping to problem details or any of that. So this is the real power of RESTful Sense. When you're communicating with an API endpoint, you can actually handle these exceptions gracefully, right? If we try to do try catch, just catching this HTTP request exception is not enough. Now your catch block has to go deeper to look at the code of the exception and then determine based on that code what needs to happen next. That's what RESTful Sense does for you, amongst other really cool things, when it comes to problem details and mapping of data and all that.
Yep.
All right, this is looking
So,
amazing. Go ahead,
so,
Brian.
so the other side of this is the actual the API that we're hitting wasn't wrapped in RESTful Sense as well. So you
That's
get a lot
right.
more power as well once that happens. And
That's right. That's
but
right.
the point of today's video is just to demonstrate how to hook it up to a client.
Awesome. Brian, this is amazing work. This is really great. A lot of people have been asking me about this. A lot of people have been asking and saying from all over the world, really, they want to build amazing Blazor client-side applications with a proper API integration using RESTful Sense. And the whole thing now is it's just literally a minute, the
Mhm.
whole thing. So now, let me ask you the second question. What about security? If I want to pass in tokens and stuff like that, does the current Sense WASM handles that and takes care of that, or is this a future release for us? Go ahead.
Okay, it can do it, but it's a bit fiddly. I've made a little extension method to make it a lot tidier, and it's almost drop in. So
Awesome.
yeah, so we'll probably try and get that pushed out this afternoon. And that'll
Awesome.
be a minor bump to the client. And I will link with this project here, which doesn't have any auth at all. I will put up a project as well that shows you how to do the auth. I've got
Awesome.
one here. I've got one already done. If we want to just me to demonstrate that, but I'll
Absolutely. Hmm.
yeah, just went to the wrong screen because it's huge.
That's right.
And again, I'll just bring it in.
All right, there we go.
So here's one here that I've already done, and I'm gonna set a startup,
Hmm.
and you'll see how I'm just going to show. So here, very similar to what you guys should be used to. This is the extension method I was talking about, which will be pushed into the library in the next
Hmm.
release. I've got it here locally in this project at the moment, and it'll basically it all looks very similar to what you're doing before,
Hmm.
and it also allows you to add this line to the end of it, which configures the token.
Message handler. So what is the message handler?
It's the authorization message handler. So it'll basically attaches the tokens for the requests that go off to the
To the
uh,
API.
yes.
So before the API call happens, it stamps it with the token, and then
Yep.
it just sends it over to the API,
Hmm.
so the API knows that this is, oh, that's beautiful. And I think, cascading parameters in Blazors, applications are the ones that actually capture that token if you're working with a third-party authority like GitHub or Facebook or whatever, and you're picking up that token and you're baking it into your API call and sending it downstream to kind of challenge that token and make sure that you're getting the right data.
So
I'm also
this
go ahead,
this
go
is
ahead.
the out of box one that handles the standard API that's basically been protected by Identity Server, which is out of the box. You can write your own, and
Nice,
then you can have as many of these set up with different dictionary names.
nice.
Um, yeah, so and all injected with different names, and they'll all have different tokens associated with them.
So this add RESTful API client, you're passing in the name for the dictionary key,
Yes,
and then
for the
nice,
factory key. Yes, yep,
nice, nice,
yep.
and you can add as many as you want because it's a
Of
factory. You
course.
can,
Yeah, yep.
nice, nice,
But because this solution only has one, I'm doing what the standard template was, but this is a drop-in replacement again. Instead of using the iHTTP client factory, I'm using the RESTful API client factory.
nice, nice.
Okay, which this here sets up.
Hmm.
Okay, and again, I'd rather inject by interface instead of by
Yeah, that's the right way to do it. So you can have the
yeah,
flexibility to kind of.
yeah. Okay, so we'll switch over to the client and have a look what I did in there.
Okay,
In the page, and it is very similar. And so again, I'm just injecting the API factory client because it has to be handled a little bit differently. We've got a couple of usings in here,
okay.
and down here it just works the same.
Just as simple. You're just picking up
Yep.
the meaningful exception and
Yeah.
if there's an authorization. So does RESTful Sense have authorization exception as well? Does it handle when the API refuses because the token is invalid or the person could not be authenticated or any of that type? Does
So
it actually?
I've actually hit this. If you run this
Mhm.
and not log in, it'll actually force a login. So I'm guessing it's handling that. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. So all the possible exceptions that can occur from an API, RESTful Sense will be able to wrap it up in a meaningful exception.
Hmm.
Awesome.
So I've just made some.
Authorizing. Nice.
Yeah, it just logged me in straight away. Yeah. So the data's flowing,
Nice. Nice.
and that's hitting an authorized API. So the tokens have been sent. I'll just log out. Now, if I try and hit that,
It will it will say unauthorized. Nice.
and redirect me to a login. Yep.
And that third party is just your own authority. You built your own identity server, right? Or is
Yeah,
this
that's the template that comes with it. The template supplies an identity server. Yes.
That's really, really awesome.
Mm.
So, okay, so and we're gonna provide you guys with all the links and all the little details, that you may need to basically be able to go and see what Brian did. There's also, if you also want to see the amazing work that he did in building this library, I only just published it. He did most of this work or all of it, actually, when it comes to just, allowing it and porting the library itself to run on Blazor. But if you want to see what he did, Brian, do you want to show people where to look for a PR to kind of learn from what you have done? A lot of people actually have had attempts to kind of try to do that with Restful Sense, but you're the only one that made it happen, man. You
I,
really,
re-
you really went.
I didn't think it was that hard, to be honest.
So where's that PR? Where can people look at the PR and look at the work that you've done
I'm
so
just a
they
bit
can like.
scared, a bit worried about what I'm going to come up on my screen. Let me find it. I
All
need
right.
to
I could uh I could kind of hide your screen a little bit until you're ready, and then I can share it back. Tell me when you're
uh,
ready.
I'll be ready in a few seconds. Just so we're going to your GitHub.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
All right, there we are.
Okay, so where did we put that port PR?
Yep, so if you guys go to RESTful Sense, and if you, Brian, if you click on closed, you'll be able to see it. So go back to pull requests and then closed, closed
Where
pull
is?
request. It's right there at the top, top. No, no, no,
Not
right
seeing.
under, right next to open.
Oh, yep, the 23 closed.
Yep, and then if you click on major fix, there you go.
Oh,
So
yeah.
basically the big fix here is to basically go and say, you can see the progress that, Brian made, and it took him some time, to kind
Mm,
of think through it. The actual execution, like you said, Brian, is really simple, but thinking about, how to make sure things are building and the tests are passing. And again, I can't convey enough how important it is to test drive your software, because when you need to make a big upgrade like this, you want to have that confidence, that when the test is passing, that means that I haven't broken any existing functionality. So you want to be as detailed as possible, but don't go down that rabbit hole. Like, don't go crazy. I see a lot of people obsessed with code coverage. Code coverage is not going to tell you whether you're actually, covering what needs to be covered in terms of business flows and core functionality and all that. But that's a story for another day. One last question for you, Brian. Why should people use Blazor WASM anyway? What do you think about that?
okay. I personally don't like I'm hearing good stories about Blazor Server, but I'm
Hmm.
dubious about how well Blazor Server will scale to a very large enterprise sort of application.
Okay,
That's just my only thought there on the difference between the two.
that's
Uh,
right.
uh, yeah, and I also think WASM also enforces a couple of very good disciplines. And it looks after security.
Hmm.
It forces you to think about security, and um, I don't know how else to explain it. I just love WASM.
Awesome. Yeah, I,
uh,
I think I think scalability is one of the biggest things, because
yeah,
you're basically letting the client do the work, and if you're building something interesting, some, multi-million users are going to start using your system. If you let all that load hammer your server, you're going to have to pay a lot of money for Azure subscriptions or cloud subscriptions, but at the same time, it's still not going to be performant. But if you serve the entire application over there to the client, and let every machine locally kind of process that information, that's where things get a little bit more efficient and more scalable. And Brian, you said like WASM, Blazor WASM makes you think about security as first class citizen. You can't just build something quick and dirty and
yes,
assume things are just going to work. But also, I think it also forces you to kind of optimize your code, because you want your code to be as small and as simple as possible, so
yes.
it doesn't take too much time to download the app, so
That's
go
one of the big problems I see with a lot of people coming over to WASM is they're trying to do too much processing in the client. You don't send a
yeah,
million records to your client and process it in your client. You really need to process those records as some sort of
on the server. Mhm.
on the server and only draw to the client the data that's required for the view models.
If there was only a protocol that would allow people to send queries through an API endpoint, and it would
Yeah.
filter the data for them, that would be a nice thing, right?
Yes, very good.
Anyways,
I'm hearing some future rumblings here.
yeah. Oh, data next. Oh, data next. Yeah. This is, there's all these little projects that are running on the side, but at the end of the day, I really, really appreciate you as a human being, and I also appreciate your skill set, to put in the time and effort and actually try to tackle a problem like this. I want, to allow people to be able to leverage all that time and effort that we put into wrapping all of these HTTP codes into meaningful exceptions and problem details. It's a lot of work. I want you guys to go out there and see what RESTful Sense is doing. And now Brian is taking it to another realm by allowing you to use this on the client side, just very easy and simple, and just 64 kilobits or something to that effect, which is
Yeah,
really cool. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you. Thank you all for watching. As usual, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. We're more than happy to hear your feedback. This is community driven software. It's open source, driven for the community, by the community, for the engineers, by the engineers. If you can think of anything that can make this library even bigger and better, we're more than happy. And I couldn't appreciate more the 40,000, is it 40,000, Brian? 40,000 downloads for this library so far. That's amazing. It's not exactly in the millions, but I'm glad that people find this something useful. And I've seen people, email us from all over the world saying, "Hey, we want Blazor WASM, and here you go. Here's your hero right here." Not all hero wear capes. Here's some of them wear headsets and have keyboards and live in Australia. That's what they do. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, Brian. And guys,
Yep.
talk to you later. Take care. Bye.
See you.